To get back to your move to Alaska, this is sort of a separate thing, because I had a few artists talk about why they either stayed in New York or why they moved to LA, and why the people that moved to LA specifically that I was talking to, why they were able to be a success. So I wanted to talk to you about that because I know you you moved somewhere, you didn't even have running water where you were living, I believe, or electricity, or
not.
I don't know, you were living in a tent, basically.
Glacier, yeah.
Yeah. And, the just sort of like, how did you eventually become successful in a new place? Because you didn't go, like the people that I spoke to went to LA, they had made connections, they had been flying out there, they had been building a network, and you kind of went with nothing. I mean, you had a place to go, right? A job to go do.
A job.
But, that was it. And you knew the job was going to be rough and you were going to be living in the wild, so to speak.
Yeah, not so to speak, actually. We lived in a wilderness area. So I will say that you always need to look at somebody's background. Everybody has an amount of privilege that they carry with them, whether that's money or experience or family or connections. I had a lot of experience in moving. I moved almost every year as a child. So moving was really normal for me. Staying put is what's new for me. And New York, I learned to love New York. But I was raised in a more wild place. I was raised in Montana. So I missed the grass and trees, and I was really struggling. I was like 29, 30, and I knew I wasn't happy, and I was really just struggling with what I wanted next. I was pretty sure I didn't want to be in the music industry anymore. But what I know that you need the bare minimum. You need money. So I had a job, and you need a place to sleep. So I had a place that it was a job with room and housing. We were running sled dogs up on a glacier, and I was running logistics because I had never run sled dogs before. So I was taking the skills that I had before and applying them to somewhere else. But there's so many different ways to move. I also moved to New York with no connections. I knew one person to audition for, and I was a nanny. So I had a job and a place to live and some sort of support network. I don't know that it's the best way to do it. It's really lonely, and it is very hard. It's also a clean slate, though. So, but from a filmmaking standpoint, the more connections you have, the better. The more details you have filled in, the better. But it's possible either way. Like if there's something inside of you, and this is what was happening in New York, everything inside of me said I wanted to move to Alaska. There was no internet. I mean, we had a little bit of internet, but nothing like today. I think I was on a listserv. I think that's how I found my job. But you have so many more resources these days of what the place looks like, the more connections you can have, the better. But if there's something inside that just says move, trust it. You figure it out. The more pre-planning you have, often the easier it is. Like if I had thought to have a car in Alaska, my life would have been a lot simpler. But I was coming from New York, so I didn't think about a car. But Alaska's huge, so you definitely needed one. But you get there and you make it work, just like everything. I think it's just like starting a film. Like you can only plan so much, and then you have to start shooting and just see what happens, and you work with what you've got and you make it work.
I think that's very well said. I think you do work with what you have, but you try to do a little bit of planning, and you don't just hitch a ride with a stranger across the road.
Yeah, don't marry them. I will say I plan a lot more now. I was also young and in my 20s. And it was moving like that both times was rough. It's the slow way of doing it. If I had to do it again, I probably would have stayed in New York for another year or two, built more connections, maybe visited That would have been, a really smart thing to do. I think you were the one that were like, have you ever been on a dog sled? I'm like, no, I'll love it though. It'll be my new lifestyle. And you were like, go try.
Good. And you did it, and I think you loved it in so many ways. And, there are pros and cons of everything you do. But it's different now, like you said, right? Like now maybe somebody can go on a Facebook group. I know somebody who decided they were moving to Colorado and they went online. Who's in Colorado? Who knows somebody in Colorado? I'm an artist. I want to know other artists, even though I'm going into a different thing now, whatever that was for them. And, so you go out there and at least you have people to have coffee with, and maybe half of them you won't really click with, but you have a beginning. And you're right, that wasn't around when you picked up and moved. So it is a little bit easier, but it's hard no matter what. It's hard to start.
It's a gamble. I think a lot of art is a gamble, and a lot of life is a gamble. You're like, well, you can't plan it to perfection. You just can't. I want to know exactly, but at some point you just have to pull the pin and go and see and realize you can't really fail at it. The whole failure culture, like you failed at this, your film failed, your art failed, your business failed. It's just information. That's just part of life.
Right. I always say to people, if you wrote a script and then you got it made somehow and you put it out to the world, you didn't fail. It doesn't matter what people think of it. It doesn't even matter if you're like, well, it wasn't exactly what I wanted. You did it, though. You did it. If somebody made a lamp and they plugged it in and it turned on, you would say that's a success. Even if the lamp is cockeyed and looks funny and, maybe it doesn't balance well and it's an ugly color. It wasn't what you expected you were going to make, but you made it. It's still made. And it's its own unique thing. Art to me, and I think everything in life really, but especially art. I used to volunteer at a school, with the pandemic, it hasn't really been happening, but I was choreographing musicals at a school. And one of the things I was constantly trying to get through when some of the students who were really hard on themselves would make a mistake, they'd be crushed. And I'm like, well, it's boring if you were perfect. I could buy a robot and make it turn around and turn around and turn around and land a certain way every single time. But that's not a human. That's not art. Right. So it is, and that is generally in life, if we were all perfect, I don't know what the hell we'd be. It'd be so boring.
It would, and it's a mantra. It's a personal mantra. I don't know if I ever talk about it much, but I have this inner idea that it's better to have an interesting life. Because I'm like, if I get to be really old and somebody gets to take care of me, I should be interesting. I should be fun to talk to. And it's also, I would just rather have a messy, interesting life and have tried my darndest at things versus followed all the rules. Every time I try to follow all the traditional rules and do what I'm told and, 1.52 kids and a white picket fence, that sort of, it's not life. That's not, I don't think, what we're here for. I think we're here to create something interesting. And sometimes that's messy.